From towering stone walls to gigantic statues, historians and archaeologists have been trying to figure out who built them, why they were built, and most importantly, how did ancient civilizations transport and construct such massive structures with the limited tools of their time. These are some of the most mysterious ancient megalithic structures. Pumapunku in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia is part of a larger temple complex linked to the Tiwanaku culture. It's thought to have been built between 536 and 600 CE, but some researchers think it could be even older than that. The site has these impressive stone blocks, with the largest weighing around 131 tons, way heavier than most modern construction equipment, and they were sourced about 50 miles away. Moving these enormous stones to such a high altitude site would have been no small feat. The area is above the tree line, which means they couldn't use wooden rollers. So how did the builders actually manage to transport these massive blocks? And it's not just how heavy they are, it's the intricate carvings on them. There are these precise etchings cut into the stone, perfectly straight lines. Did they have some kind of advanced tools we just don't know about? Without knowing it, I'd think these were carved with modern day electric tools, but of course that wouldn't have been the case in the year 600. In Saqqara, near the pyramid of Djoser in Egypt, archaeologists discovered 24 coffin-shaped black boxes. These boxes are made of solid Aswan granite, a material so tough that it's hard to scratch even with modern tools. Each box is massive, weighing over 100 tons, and they're designed to be airtight. The lids of these boxes are also made from granite and weigh about 30 tons each. The precision with which these boxes were cut and assembled is just astonishing. Some think that the sheer level of skill shown in these boxes is just so high that it seems almost impossible for ancient people to have achieved it. Of course they did though, which just goes to show how truly impressive the ancient Egyptians were, unless of course you're in the alien camp and think that aliens just helped them out or that the Egyptians copied some advanced design of theirs. As for now though, nobody knows exactly why there are 24 boxes or what their original purpose was. Nan Madol is an incredible ancient city located on the coast of Phnom Penh in Micronesia. The site has about 100 artificial islets spread over 150 acres of lagoon. It's estimated that it could have housed more than 1,000 people. Built between 1100 and 1628 CE, Nan Madol was likely a ceremonial and political center. What makes Nan Madol fascinating is how it was built. The structures are made from massive basalt columns, and there was no mortar. The builders just constructed and placed the stones perfectly. It's incredibly impressive, but how did they do it? Well, legend has it that giant birds lifted and placed these heavy stones. The layout of Nan Madol is complex as well, with interconnected islets and waterways. This was a highly organized society. The people who lived here had very advanced skills. Asuka is a village in Japan that dates back to the Kofun period, around 250 to 552 CE. The area is rich in history, and the massive stone structures definitely add to the allure. There are about 20 famous stone monuments here, and to this day, some of them are still super mysterious. No one knows exactly who built them or why. This is definitely the case with Masuda no Anofune, or the rock ship of Masuda. This massive stone structure measures 36 feet long, about 26 feet wide, and is about 16.5 feet tall, weighing around 800 tons. It sits at the top of a hill, and looking at it, it doesn't resemble anything else in the area. A lot of the other monuments look more like Buddhist pieces, but this does not look like your typical Buddhist architecture at all. In fact, I don't really know what style of architecture it resembles. It looks almost alien. At the very least, it looks like something you'd see in a modern art museum. There are some theories about its purpose, but none have been proven. Some think it could have been a ceremonial site, others think it might have had some astronomical significance, which seems to be the go-to explanation when experts just have no idea what the hell something is. It's something to do with the stars. The Longyu Caves are a group of 24 man-made caves in China. The caves were carved out of sandstone, and as for who built them and why, no one knows. They were mentioned in a 17th century poem, but no one really knows exactly when they were created. Some clay pots found in the silt inside the caves have been dated back between 206 BCE and 23 CE though. Another cool thing about these caves is that they were found by accident. In June of 1992, 4 farmers drained some ponds in their village, and there they were. What they thought were just ponds turned out to be huge man-made caverns. After doing some digging, they discovered 19 more caverns nearby too. The caves could be over 2,000 years old, but there are no historical records detailing how or why they were built. But how would they have been constructed though? Well, with the types of tools available at the time, it would have required around 1,000 skilled workers digging 24 hours a day for many years to complete a project like this. Another odd part, there's no evidence of where all the rubble went. It's estimated that over 1 million cubic meters of stone were removed, but not a single trace of it has ever been found. Deep in the jungles of northern Guatemala is El Mirador, an ancient city-state that was once home to over 1 million people. El Mirador is huge. It's one of the largest and oldest Maya cities. What's really cool about it though are the roads. There's a 150-mile network of ancient highways. They were rediscovered in 1967 by British explorer Ian Graham, who published a map of the site. Then in 2006, researchers used lasers to scan the Mirador Basin from the sky, and they were able to create 3D images that showed this system of roads, pyramids, and canals. The highways themselves were massive, with raised causeways 20 feet high. What's wild is that these roads were built between 600 BCE and 100 CE. They would have helped move supplies and people across this vast city. These ancient roads are part of what make El Mirador one of the most sophisticated ancient civilizations in the Americas. What you're looking at here is the mysterious Monk's Mound in Illinois, part of the Cahokia Mounds. The mounds were part of an ancient city home to the Mississippian people between 1050 and 1350 CE. Cahokia once had a population of 15,000 to 20,000 people, and it was a marvel of engineering and planning. The site now contains about 80 mounds, but the original city had around 120. The mounds were used for everything from ceremonial purposes to housing elite rulers. The most famous mound, Monk's Mound, is the largest in North America, standing 10 stories tall and covering 14 acres. Pretty bizarre, you have an ancient pyramid right in the middle of Illinois. Cahokia was the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico and one of the most complex archaeological sites in the US. The city's original name has unfortunately been lost to time, but the mounds were named after the Cahokia tribe, a group that lived nearby when French explorers arrived in the 17th century. Uxmal on the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico is one of the most important cities of the Maya civilization. It's a site full of massive structures, but one of the standouts here is the Pyramid of the Magician, also called the House of the Dwarf. Legend has it that a dwarf, who hatched from an egg, built the pyramid in a single night. In reality, the pyramid was built in the 6th century, but it's still an impressive feat. Standing 115 feet tall, the pyramid is the largest building in Uxmal with 5 levels and multiple temples inside. The Maya often built new structures on top of older ones, and Temple 4, one of the top temples in the pyramid, has 12 stone masks around its doorway, thought to represent Chak, the rain god. The governor's palace, another giant structure, covers over 12,000 square feet. You'll also find ancient roads that connect Uxmal to other Maya cities like Tikal and even Caracol in Belize. Today, Uxmal is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's easy to see why. Chichen Itza is one of the most famous and impressive ancient Maya cities, located in the heart of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula once again. At one time, it was a busy place full of religious ceremonies, politics, and trade. At its peak, it was home to around 35,000 people. It was built in a perfect spot near a bunch of natural sinkholes that provided plenty of water. In fact, the name Chichen Itza comes from the Mayan words chi, mouth, chen, wells, and Itza, which was the name of the Mayan tribe who settled there at the time. Chichen Itza was founded in the 6th century, but it really reached its height during the 10th century when it was influenced by the Toltec people from central Mexico. One of the most famous buildings here is El Castillo, the pyramid at the center of the site. At 79 feet tall, it has 365 steps, one for each day of the year, and during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the shadows create this illusion of a serpent slithering down the stairs. Machu Picchu is one of the most iconic ancient structures in the entire world, sitting high in the Peruvian Andes and nearly 8,000 feet above sea level. It's a 15th century Inca citadel, often called the Lost City of the Incas, and for good reason. It was mostly hidden from the outside world until 1911, when American historian Hiram Bingham rediscovered it. The site is mind-blowing to say the least. It was built in the classical Inca style with perfectly fitted dry stone walls, and its three main structures, the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the Three Windows, and the Intihuatana are still standing. The Inca never wrote anything down though, so no one really knows exactly what Machu Picchu was for. The leading theory is that it was a private retreat for the Inca emperor, but built around 1450. Some archaeologists think it was more of a royal estate, but we still don't really know. Machu Picchu was abandoned by the Inca around 100 years later, just before the Spanish conquest. This is super exciting because it's a very recent find. In southeastern Mexico, a team of archaeologists has uncovered a hidden ancient Mayan city, more than 6,000 structures, including pyramids, all buried under thick vegetation. The city has been dubbed Valeriana, and it was revealed thanks to LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging. It's a laser-based mapping tool that uses airborne sensors to scan the landscape. The data, collected back in 2013 as part of a forest monitoring project, wasn't actually being used for archaeology, but when researchers took a closer look, they saw this sprawling Mayan city. And according to Luke Thomas, the study's lead author, our analysis revealed not only a picture of a densely settled region, but also a lot of variability. End quote. This wasn't just a small settlement, but a large city, potentially home to 30 to 50,000 people between 750 and 850 CE. The city was hidden in plain sight, with farmers unknowingly working among the ancient ruins. And it's amazing because 6,764 structures have been found, and as Thomas put it, there is much more to be discovered. When I first saw an image of this place, I thought that it may have been an AI-generated image, but it isn't. Despite how fantastical this place looks, it's actually real. This is the Sigiriya rock fortress in Sri Lanka. High in the jungles of Sri Lanka, there's a towering rock fortress that doesn't look like it should exist. Sigiriya, also known as Lion's Rock, was built in the 5th century CE by King Kashyapa, who constructed this place on top of a giant boulder that rises 200 meters or about 650 feet above the ground. To enter the place, visitors had to climb this massive staircase that passed through the mouth of this colossal lion sculpture. After Kashyapa completed the palace, his brother launched an attack. Kashyapa's army abandoned him, and the king's wives jumped to their deaths from the top of the rock, and the fortress eventually was captured and fell into ruin. For centuries it was forgotten, first as a royal palace, then as a Buddhist monastery. When European archaeologists rediscovered it though, they were stunned. The lion entrance, real. The palace's mirror wall, designed to reflect the king's own image as he walked through, real. Today, UNESCO calls Sigiriya the 8th wonder of the world. What you're looking at here is known simply as the Lost City of Colombia. In the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains is a city that was lost to time for centuries. About 1,300 years ago, the Tairona people built an incredible city on top of the hills. And the story goes that they'd been instructed by their god, who told them to live as close as they could to the stars. For 700 to 800 years, people lived here until the Spanish conquistadors arrived, and the Tairona never encountered the Europeans themselves, but the diseases that they brought spread rapidly and wiped out the entire civilization. With no one left to care for it, the city fell into ruin and was mostly forgotten. It wasn't until the 70s that a group of bandits passing through the jungle came across this hidden city, and they couldn't believe their eyes. An ancient overgrown city full of precious artifacts. Pretty amazing. The bandits pocketed what they could and sold their loot on the black market, and that's when archaeologists caught wind of this amazing discovery, and soon what was known only as the Lost City was uncovered after nearly 500 years. For centuries, there's been a legend of this hidden city deep in the jungles of Honduras. Hernan Cortez, the infamous Spanish conquistador, heard rumors of what was called the White City, or the City of the Monkey God, a place said to be full of unimaginable wealth. Cortez searched and searched, but he never found it, and neither did anyone else for hundreds of years. But the legend never went away. Even Charles Lindbergh, the famous American aviator, claimed to have seen this city while flying over the country. Others swore that they'd found it, but for one reason or another, they couldn't or wouldn't reveal its location. Then in the early 2000s, archaeologists came across something almost by accident. A team following the path described by one of the more eccentric individuals who claimed to have discovered it ended up finding this massive ancient city exactly where he said it would be. Deep in the rainforest, they uncovered a pyramid and a series of stone sculptures, remnants of some advanced civilization that had vanished more than 1,000 years before. Now, it's still not 100% certain if this truly is the city of the monkey god Cortez spoke of, but it is still proof of a lost civilization. The lost city, now known as La Ciudad Blanca, is just a reminder that legends are sometimes closer to reality than we may realize. What you're looking at here is the ancient city of Tikal, deep in the Guatemalan rainforest. This ancient Mayan city, thought to have been called Yaxmutal, was once the capital of a powerful Maya kingdom, occupied from around 200 to 900 CE. There were huge pyramids, royal palaces, massive stone monuments, some still standing today, as you can see. Like a lot of Mayan cities, it's not super clear why it was abandoned. Could have been a combination of things, lack of resources, environmental changes. It wasn't until 1848, though, that an organized expedition rediscovered the place, but it's still one of the largest and best preserved archaeological sites in the Americas. These are the rice terraces of the Philippines. They're a pretty breathtaking feat of ancient engineering. These terraces, carved into the steep slopes of the Cordillera Mountains over 2,000 years ago, are often called the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. The terraces were designed to grow rice, but the real magic is in how they were built, using the natural contours of the land and without modern technology. Generations of indigenous Ifugao people with basic tools created all of this. And it's said the Ifugao people didn't just build the terraces, they became the land. They engineered intricate irrigation systems, creating channels and bamboo pipes that bring water from nearby rivers all the way up to the fields so that the crops are healthy even in the dry season. What's even crazier is that these terraces are still in use today. People are still farming rice on the very same terraces that were built over 2,000 years ago. San Agustin Archaeological Park in Colombia is home to the largest collection of megalithic sculptures in Latin America and is considered the world's largest necropolis. There are all kinds of statues here, which were likely carved between 5 and 400 CE. You'll find gigantic anthropomorphic figures of jaguars, crocodiles, and birds. Some statues stand as high as 23 feet, or about 7 meters. Others are smaller, but still very impressive. We still don't know exactly who created them or why. What is clear is that a lot of the statues appear to guard burial mounds, which means maybe the ancient culture believed in protecting the deceased in the afterlife. The site was first documented by a Spanish monk in the 18th century, but it wasn't until much later that serious excavations happened. And today, San Agustin is an UNESCO World Heritage Site with over 500 statues scattered across more than 50 square kilometers. Great Zimbabwe, found in modern-day Zimbabwe, is one of Africa's most incredible ancient sites and the largest collection of ruins south of the Sahara. Legend has it that this is where the biblical Queen of Sheba once ruled, but in reality the city existed between the 11th and 15th centuries. The exact identity of the people who built it was debated for years, with a lot of the colonial government in Rhodesia outright refusing to believe that the advanced city was built by native Africans, but today it's generally accepted that the Shona people built the city. At one point, Great Zimbabwe was home to around 18,000 people, and its massive stone walls, some reaching 5 meters or about 16.5 feet in height, were built without any mortar. Nan Madol in Micronesia is an ancient city built on over 100 tiny islets, earning its nickname Venice of the Pacific. There's a lot of mystery behind how it was built. Local legends say two wizard brothers, Olishipa and Oloshipa, arrived from across the sea in a giant canoe, and they wanted to create a place to honor the gods of the sea and harvest. After two failed attempts to move giant stones to the site, they used the magic of a dragon to levitate the blocks. Nan Madol's construction is still being studied today. The people who built it didn't have pulleys, cranes, no metal tools, so it's believed they moved nearly 2,000 tons of stone every year for over 400 years. How they managed this, especially in such a remote area, is still one of history's greatest mysteries. Angkor Wat in Cambodia is one of the most jaw-dropping ancient structures in the world. It's also the largest religious monument in the world. It was originally built in the early 12th century, designed as a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu. By the 14th century, it had become a Buddhist temple, which it remains to this day. The entire temple complex is surrounded by a massive moat. The main temple rises up with 5 towering spires representing the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the center of the Hindu universe. The walls are etched with incredible images of mythical creatures and battle scenes, and the craftsmanship is so intricate that it really feels like a completely different world. And that's just from images and video I've seen. I can only imagine what it'd be like actually stepping into this place. And Angkor Wat is just part of what was once a much larger city, Angkor, which once housed over 1 million people. And that's massive when you consider it was built in a time long before cranes and other modern tools. Over the centuries, the jungle slowly is creeping back in, and it's overtaking a lot of the city, leaving behind this incredible hidden world that wasn't fully rediscovered until the 19th century. Definitely a place I gotta add to my list of places I want to go. Vilcabamba in Peru, often called the lost city of the Incas as well, was the final stronghold of the Inca Empire. It was the capital of the Neo-Inca state from 1539 until its fall in 1572. It was the last base of Incan resistance against Spanish invaders. The city's remote jungle location made it nearly impossible for the Spanish to reach, allowing the Incas to hold out for decades here. Its ruins were hidden for centuries. In 1911, explorer Hiram Bingham mistakenly identified Machu Picchu as Vilcabamba, but years later explorers, including Jean Savoy in the 60s, found that the real site was actually this one here. For decades, the Spanish struggled to locate the city, with one chronicler writing, "Great resources are needed to undertake a penetration of that land." But the city was finally captured in 1572, leading to the execution of the last Inca monarch. Yaxchilan is an ancient Mayan city found deep in the jungles of southern Mexico. Along the Usumacinta River, it was one of the most powerful cities in the Maya world between the 4th and 9th centuries. The city is probably most famous for its huge acropolis, a collection of buildings that includes temples, palaces, and ceremonial areas. The site is also packed with all these incredible reliefs that tell us quite a bit about the Maya life, their gods, and the rituals that they would have performed. Yaxchilan's remote location helped it stay hidden for centuries, and it wasn't until the 19th century that explorers started to rediscover it. One of the coolest things about this place is how the jungle has slowly started reclaiming the city, giving it this kind of lost feel to it. And next on the list we have geoglyphs. In the Amazon rainforest, large-scale geoglyphs, which are these ancient formations created by removing topsoil, have been discovered over the years. They're basically these colossal drawings carved into the earth, some stretching over 600 feet. They're in all kinds of shapes, circles, squares, some depict animals even. And researchers believe these geoglyphs were constructed between 2,000 and 6,500 years ago by indigenous tribes. As to their purpose though, that's still mostly a mystery. There are theories. Maybe they are used for ceremonial or religious practices, or maybe they had a more practical function like water management or defense, but the sheer scale of these things and the effort it would have required to create them definitely raises a lot of questions about what these tribes were capable of. Calakmul is an ancient Maya city deep in the jungles of southern Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula once again, and it was one of the largest and most powerful Maya cities, especially during the Classic period, around 600 to 700 500 CE. Found near the Guatemalan border, Calakmul was a major player in the Maya world, often locked in competition with other city-states like Tikal, which we covered in part 1, so check that out if you haven't already. The city is massive, covering more than 70 square kilometers, but it's most famous for its massive pyramids. The largest pyramid, known as Structure 1, stands over 145 feet tall and is one of the tallest Maya pyramids ever discovered. It's so big that it even dwarfs other pyramids in the region. Teotihuacan is one of the most impressive and mysterious ancient cities in Mesoamerica, sitting just 25 miles northeast of modern Mexico City. At its peak, it was the largest city in the Americas, with a population that could have reached up to 125,000 people, making it one of the world's biggest cities during its time. The city is famous for its massive pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. These monuments are massive, the Pyramid of the Sun standing at 200 feet high, making it one of the largest pyramids in the world. But Teotihuacan has more than just those giant stone structures. It also had a sophisticated layout with multi-family apartment complexes, wide avenues, and intricate murals that now give us a glimpse into the daily life of the people who once lived there. And the place had a lot of influence on places surrounding it too. The city's obsidian tools were highly prized across Mesoamerica, and evidence of its presence has been found as far away as the Maya region. Its cultural impact was huge. The later Aztecs even saw Teotihuacan as their spiritual ancestors and adopted some aspects of their culture into their own. Teotihuacan was established around 100 BCE, but mysteriously collapsed in the 6th century. The walls of Sacsayhuaman. I was saying that, Sacsayhuaman. They're a very impressive feat of ancient engineering found just outside Cusco, Peru, built by the Inca in the 15th century. It's a massive fortress famous for its enormous stone walls made from giant blocks, some weighing up to 200 tons. And aside from how heavy they are, the stones fit together so nicely and tightly that you can't even slide a toothpick between them. Sacsayhuaman indeed. This site would have been used as a fortification and for ceremonial practices. The walls are arranged in a zigzag pattern, which makes the place effective for defense. But how did the Incas manage to transport and shape these massive stones without modern tools? Well, there are theories. They could have used wooden sledges or ramps, but no one really knows for sure. When the Spaniards arrived and took over Cusco, they were so amazed by the walls that they believed only demons could have built such an incredible structure. They even tried to tear down parts of it, but the boulders were just too heavy for them to move. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, also known as the Diquis spheres. These perfectly round stone spheres range in size from just a few inches to over 8 feet in diameter, with some weighing as much as 16 tons. They're found mainly in the Diquis Delta and the nearby Isla del Cano. Most of these spheres are made of a hard type of granite called granodiorite, and they're believed to have been created by the now extinct Diquis culture between 500 CE and 1500 CE. How did they carve such perfectly round, smooth stones? We don't know for sure. Some researchers think they might have used tools made from harder materials or just had techniques that we can't fully understand today. There are also myths and legends that the Diquis people had a potion that they used to soften the rocks and sculpt them. All we know for sure is that the precision and craftsmanship here is very impressive. What about what they were used for? The main theory is that they were used to mark the burial sites of important people. There's always the possibility though that they built them just because. I mean, why not? They look nice. Unfortunately, a lot of these spheres have been moved or destroyed over the years. Only about 30 are still in their original locations. The Plain of Jars is one of the most fascinating and mysterious archaeological sites in Laos. The site is full of large stone jars scattered all over the landscape. Some of the jars are massive, weighing up to several tons. Some are much smaller. There are over 2,000 of these jars across the region, with the largest concentration found in a site called Site 1. And you guessed it, no one really knows who made these jars or why they were created. But archaeologists think the jars date back around 500 BCE to 500 CE. The jars were often carved from sandstone or limestone and are mostly cylindrical. Some theories suggest they were used for burial practices, possibly to hold the remains of the dead, but legend has it they were created by giants. In Bata Valley, Indonesia, you'll find some incredible stone monuments. These statues look a bit like the moai from Easter Island. You'd think that with such striking designs, historians would easily know when and why these megaliths were created, but again, no one really knows how old they are or what they were built for. When locals are asked about the purpose of these statues, they often just say, well, they've always been there. Some believe the megaliths are linked to human sacrifice. Others think they were to ward off evil spirits. Some tales even say these stones are criminals turned to stone and that they can move on their own at night. Another cool thing, the megaliths weren't made from stone found in the local area. The Olmec colossal heads. These are some of the most beautiful artifacts from the ancient world and some of the most intriguing. They were crafted by the Olmec civilization, which lived on the Gulf of Mexico between 1200 BCE and 400 BCE. The heads seem to represent important Olmec rulers, given how difficult it would have been to construct them, and the fact that each and every one of them are unique. So far, 17 of these heads have been found, with 10 from San Lorenzo and 4 from La Venta, both major Olmec sites. Each head is carved from a single basalt boulder, and some of these massive stones were transported over 62 miles to where they stand today. They're actually older than the more famous moai of Rapa Nui. You can tell by looking at them that they're incredibly heavy, 6 tons at the smallest to over 50 tons for the largest, which was never completed. We still don't know exactly how the Olmec moved these gigantic boulders. In fact, we don't really know a whole lot about the Olmecs at all. These heads are some of the few clues we have about their civilization, which mysteriously vanished over 2,000 years ago. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. You have to watch this video next, Mysterious Artifacts in Egypt That Defy Explanation. The original home to all of the megalithic structures has some mysterious artifacts that can't be explained. What are you waiting for? Click the video now.